Now, this is a big reflection by Democratic senators who spoke anonymously in part with The Hill on why Democrats lost. And it really shows some inter-party reflection. Some would say a mea culpa. Some are saying freaking out or just utter sadness over Democrats' failure. Of course, many people are very, very happy since we have a 50-50 country-ish. Probably a little more to one side at this point, clearly. But look at this. This is in The Hill. Democratic senators say they bungled border security. It's not just that they talk about, though. Listen to this. And then I want to show you who they're ranking for the next potential president, and it's absolutely nuts. So listen to some of these things. Democratic senators are privately acknowledging their party committed political malpractice by bungling the issue of border security. Then you've got Biden, who basically made the situation worse. How? Many Senate Democrats think voters' sour views about Biden's record was driven by anger over rising costs, probably the biggest factor behind Trump's victory, inflation. But there's a growing feeling amongst Democratic lawmakers that Biden mismanaged the huge surge of migrants across the southern border. And this hurt their party dearly. Mind you, The Hill leans a little on the left side. Some Democrats think Biden made a huge mistake when in May of 2023, he lifted Title 42, the emergency health order Trump had put in place to block migrants from entering the country to seek asylum. Biden's decision allowed millions of migrants to stay in the country while their asylum cases slowly moved through the courts. Now, what's actually really interesting about this is if you look at the Sinema quote, listen to this. Kyrsten Sinema, who left the Democratic Party, let's zoom out a little, there we go, who left the Democratic Party to become an independent after the midterms, warned years ago that the Biden administration was not prepared for the deluge of migrants that would follow following the end of Title 42. And that's exactly what ended up happening. So Kyrsten Sinema absolutely nailed it. You've got other Democrats who are trying to blame Donald Trump for defeating the bipartisan border bill, which it is true that there were problems in the border bill, but it is also true that Donald Trump campaigned against the border bill because he wanted to win so they could solve it their way. I mean, there is some truth to that as well. But that explanation for why Democrats couldn't solve the problem while they were in power just didn't stick with constituents, voters. And you know what? Rightfully so. If you've got power, you've got control of the Senate, you've got control of the presidency. Yes, you didn't have the House, but that didn't mean you had to, as president, lift Title 42. It didn't mean you couldn't have left Remain in Mexico in place, which Donald Trump is expecting to re-implement, which is essentially when you get asylum seekers that are like, hey, I'm afraid for my life. I'd like to come into America. And they're like, really? Okay. Here, fill out this form. Under Biden, it's fill out this form. Go in America. Under Trump, it's fill out this form. We'll get back to you. Stay in Mexico. It's essentially the difference. You know, critics of that policy say, hey, well, you know, they're in a dangerous place. You know, they could die while they're gone. Others say, well, we can't take everybody until we've processed them. We need to do it the right way. Anyway, so in the end, that strategy of Democrats blaming Republicans didn't work. And a lot of that was because of Biden, again, ending the title policy, as well as Remain in Mexico. Now, quickly for color, it's worth remembering that Title 42 is the policy that was instituted during COVID. It was actually from a 1944 public health law that allowed immigration into the country to be limited for the sake of public health. That was revised under Trump using COVID. And Biden lifted this, although you could have left it in place until you dealt with the immigration situation. But instead, we lost Remain in Mexico. We lost Title 42, which Kyrsten Sinema warned about. We also stopped building the border wall. And what ended up happening was you lost almost every demographic. Now, I want to talk about who Democrats might be thinking about for president next. But for now, for the next 4 years, we've got Donald Trump, and we've got a Black Friday sale today on the Trumponomics course. And some people were asking me, Kevin, why are you making a course on Trumponomics if we don't even know the policies we're going to get yet next year? And folks, that is the point. Take a look at this. Critical tax strategies under Trump. Start doing this now in 2024 and throughout 2025. Updated as new laws pass for free. That is, I'm expecting to update about 30% of the course as new laws pass, totally for free. So you're constantly kept up to date with, all right, here's the game plan now. Here's the game plan now. Kind of like during the COVID days. All right, this is what the bill is. Let's break it down and find out the loopholes and find out how to make money with it. All of that's going to be going into the Make Money Under Trump, Trumponomics course, as well as stock, options, crypto, trade alerts, job and raise strategies, entity and expense management, wealth growth hedging, real estate analysis. This is like the course to own for 2025. It is brand new content. It is some of the best content that will ever be put on my Teachable. So go check that out on the course platform over at meetkevin.com. Now, as far as candidates for president, this gets a little scary, but the Hill suggests AOC is on the list for being somebody who can cut through the noise and doesn't talk like Washington. I think this is exactly the opposite of what Democrats are quietly saying they should do, which in the last piece that Hill argued, people who say be more moderate if they're talking about the border, I agree. I've always agreed. This sentiment, by the way, being more moderate, goes along almost every bit of commentary that senators, Democrats basically, feel like they've been too extreme, maybe too on the woke side, too pro-trans, playing men basically playing in women's sports. And these are basically arguments where, hey, the pendulum has swung too far. We're not connecting with people, but we need to look at what happened and figure out why we lost men, we lost Hispanics, we lost women, some potential even Latinos who moved over to Trump may have even voted for Trump because they didn't want people following them in with knowing how loose the border is. That was a pretty crazy line right there. But anyway, I don't think that AOC is the definition of going less extreme. I think this is the example of going more extreme. And honestly, this would be a gift to Republicans. If you're a Republican, you're like, please platform AOC, because I think she'd get creamed. J.B. Pritzker, Pete Buttigieg. I honestly think, me personally, I think Pete, nice guy, but I think he's going to come across as too weak against a Trump candidate like a J.D. Vance. My take, Josh Shapiro, Gretchen Whitmer. Of course, you've got Gavin Newsom in this list. He is probably, and I don't like this guy at all. I ran against him for governor. I think he's done terrible things in California. But I'm going to say, out of the list here, even next to Kamala Harris, he is probably the strongest option against a Trump-style candidate like a J.D. Vance. I don't like him, again. I want to be clear about that, but just also going to, I want you to know my bias when I have it. And I want to say that I think out of the list of these candidates, Pete and Harris, they're just not going to be strong enough against someone like a Vance, a Trump candidate. Gavin Newsom, even though I don't like him, I think he's probably the best for Democrats out of this list. He has the best name recognition outside of Democrats. And options like AOC would be going way too far. Harris and Pete, too weak. That's my take. But at the same time, you also, who's not on this list, Politico has the potential for Ro Khanna setting himself up for a 2028 bid. He's interesting because he's pretty moderate. I remember him, he was trying to pitch the, I forgot what the plan was called, but it was basically $1,000 per month of stimulus, like money for the people every day, or I can't remember what the plan was during the COVID days. So he's definitely on the left side. But he actually says that liberals around the world like himself should not abandon Elon Musk's X for other platforms. And we have a more robust tradition of free speech. And if someone's 15 and wants to speak out about Palestinian rights or LGBTQ or Black Lives Matter and wants to be online, I don't think we should blankly restrict that person's speech. I think there are other ways to go about it. So in other words, big on being pro Elon Musk here. So this is very interesting, but it does show you that there's some real self-reflecting going on and potentially even a little bit of freaking out. What do you think? Who would make the best candidate out of this list? And do you think Democrats are right to self-reflect that, Biden really screwed up with Remain in Mexico, Title 42, funding for the border wall? Look at this. Halting construction of the border wall, implemented a 100-day moratorium on deportations and paused other interior immigration enforcement initiatives. He basically gutted the ability of the Department of Homeland Security to do what they're designed to do, protect the homeland. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Go get that Black Friday coupon.
Why not advertise these things that you told us here? I feel like nobody else knows about this.
We'll try a little advertising and see how it goes.
Congratulations, man. You have done so much. People love you. People look up to you.
Kevin Paffrath there, financial analyst and YouTuber. Meet Kevin. Always great to get your take.